It's Fantasy Friday here on the PHNX Coyotes. I was about to say the PHNX Sports Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Literally not the name of the show.
Oh.
The PHNX Coyotes Podcast. I'm Leah Merrill here with Craig Morgan and Steve Peters. I mentioned it's Fantasy Friday, and we are super excited for our guest today. It's the senior fantasy editor of NHL.com, Pete Jensen. Pete, welcome to the PHNX Coyotes Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Really excited about the upcoming season, starting in early October, of course, and you're gonna have the Arizona Coyotes, still in the bottom tier of the league, but I think a lot.
Pete Jensen choosing his words carefully here.
I think it's an exciting season for the Coyotes with where they're going to be playing, with some of the young talent on the team. We'll see whether or not they keep Jacob Chikrin, but there's still a lot of fantasy storylines surrounding this team.
So I'm really excited about this interview today. I've been a fantasy hockey player. This is going to be my 10th season. I'm the commissioner of my league, so I'm really excited about this one. We're going to ask you specifically about Coyotes players and also just fantasy strategy in general, because I'm the type of person, when I draft my team, I try and avoid players from bad teams generally, because sometimes bad teams can affect that player's stats. It is what it is. But there are still Coyotes players. We saw it last season. Coyotes players who had great seasons. So I'm curious what your take is on. Oh, we're getting a beer delivery here. This is what our show is
We're
like.
gonna talk hockey and fantasy hockey and Coyotes. I need a beer.
Exactly.
Let me start with this, though, before we get into specifics on Coyotes. I have a lot of people in my life who play fantasy sports in one form or another, and I always hear them talk about their strategies, but I've never really gone behind the scenes to see how the sausage is made from the people that run the sites. So why don't you give a sense of how you guys put these rankings together? Who's involved in this process? How many people? What does it all look like when you guys are putting all of this together?
Sure. Well, it's a combination of me and my colleague, Anna Dua. You could follow her on Twitter and Instagram. She just about six months ago. But we're pretty entrenched in this. We're covering all 32 teams, their prospects, their lineups all year round. So these rankings are updated on a weekly basis all year round. And we're kind of, even in the off season, we get some trends after the playoffs. Then we correct some things and make some changes after the draft, and then off season moves, and then, teammate beneficiaries. And then you look at contract years for the upcoming season and which guys, the breakout players of last year, Tage Thompson, Jordan Kyrou, and guys like that. Like, could they replicate what they did? Are they coming down a little bit? This year there were off-season movers like Johnny Gaudreau, Jonathan Huberdeau, Kadri, big names, but I think for different reasons their stats might come down a little bit. So you're always looking at bounce-back appeal, regression, all kinds of things like that. Of course, sleeper upside, whether it's a rookie or just a young player that's maybe taken on a bigger role this upcoming season because of an off-season departure on his team, for instance. So that's kind of like what we're thinking. We also do our point and win projections on NHL.com/fantasy. And really, if you're doing a fantasy hockey draft, you will be at a disadvantage if you don't use that cheat sheet that we have on NHL.com/fantasy, because it's really, you could click on the sleeper list in 5 seconds. You could click on the mock draft and see where somebody went. You can see the breakout list, the rookie list, the bargains list, all these different things, the positional rankings. It's a really great thing to make your life easier when you only have, 30 seconds or a minute to make your pick.
It's so true.
I feel like everything's in the right place where you can find all the information very easily. We have a ton of lists and all kinds of things like that to make your life easier draft night.
Does it get heated when you guys are putting these rankings together? Are there arguments? Or is there disagreement?
There are some disagreements, but no, it's all in good fun. When it gets heated, we hash it out on the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast, and that's another thing. If you have more time to devote to this, other than just maybe being a casual fan and getting into it on draft day, like definitely check out our season preview episodes of Fantasy on Ice. We're going to have like something close to 10 season preview episodes. We got mock draft 1.0 and 2.0, off-season moves, sleepers, and rookies and keepers, breakout type players. It's a really fun thing. Stat projections, we did a whole episode on that. So definitely check out those resources as well, depending on how much time you have to devote to prep for your draft.
Yeah, absolutely check out the Fantasy on Ice podcast. You can find it on NHL.com. I always have the NHL.com/fantasy page open. It's like Pete said, it's so easy to find. Petey was trying to find the list of rookies before, and it's all right there. So it's such a great resource. We'll get more into the bigger picture of fantasy in a little bit, but I really want to dive into the Coyotes aspect of it. I haven't had the chance to peruse the top 100 yet, but who are your top picks on this Coyotes team that maybe somebody could find value in Coyotes players in their fantasy team?
Well, the Coyotes are one of those teams where, sometimes you have teams get overhyped or underhyped. Like, I feel like the Coyotes, depending on what they do, they're going to be undervalued in fantasy drafts. You're going to be able to get a lot of these guys in the later rounds. Jacob Chychrun, we saw what he did a couple of years ago, among the leaders of defensemen in goals. He has that type of ceiling. And even if, you draft him and he gets traded, he might be going to an even better team. So you never know what could happen there. But Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz were great on the same line together last year. Nick Schmaltz, everyone remembers the 7-point game and then a 4-point game after that, and he was close to a point per game on the season. I mean, that's the real deal. That's fantasy sleeper potential right there in a nutshell. If people are avoiding Coyotes because they don't think they're going to be a great team, that's fair, but Nick Schmaltz could still get you a point per game, and that's really good value. So that's how I look at it with some of these Arizona players. And really, like when you look at a Shane Gostisbehere from last year, even though I've been talking up Chychrun, if Chychrun does get traded, Gostisbehere has a great chance to maybe replicate what he did last year. He was one of the biggest surprises at the defenseman position in the whole league, eclipsing 50 points.
We talked about the big names here, the guys that our fans expect to see on the top of the stats board for the Coyotes this year. But there's a couple names, one that joined the team late at the trade deadline last year, and then one that just came over this summer in Nick Ritchie and Nick Bjugstad. Two guys that I think are going to have potentially top six roles with this team. Is a player like a Nick Bjugstad who had an offensive upside early in his career, maybe with more ice time and getting to play with better players. Is there a chance that you look at a player like Nick Bjugstad or even Nick Ritchie in later rounds as being a good pickup as a sleeper pick?
Those are guys in a standard league. It might be different if you're in a league with a bunch of Coyotes fans, but most of the people out there in North America are not going to be drafting those guys. They'll maybe keep an eye on them on the waiver wire if they see that one of them's playing on the top line with a good line mate. It'll be a great waiver wire pickup for fantasy. Nick Ritchie has some good category coverage from different teams that he's kind of scratched the surface with over the years. I prefer him to Bjugstad, but Bjugstad has had some nice flashes through the years, depending on the team and the position he's played. I think he's pretty versatile. And, I know the Coyotes addressed the center position in their draft, but it's probably not going to be in those guys very much this upcoming season. Time will tell. So in the meantime, you could see a lot of hidden value from a Nick Bjugstad. Maybe, you never know, maybe a 45, 50-point season, diamond in the rough, and no one will see it coming because we have seen Bjugstad produce in the past. But yeah, again, with Ritchie, if a guy's covering the hits category, it gives him a high floor. Then if he scores 15, 20 goals, then you could start to see like something we saw last year. I mean, I thought another really great performer, diamond in the rough from the Coyotes last year, was Lawson Krause.
Yeah.
He didn't even play the full season. He scored 20 goals and he had almost 3 hits per game. 20 goals with almost 3 hits per game. I mean, there are not many players around the whole NHL that cover categories like that. So Lawson Krause is a deep sleeper and another guy that a non-Coyotes fan will forget about for the most part in their draft.
Want to go back to your mentioning of Jacob Chychrun. Why are you talking him up, Pete? You know the situation here. I'm sure you've read all the news. What are you seeing ahead for Jakob Chychrun?
I mean, there are years left on his contract, so it really depends on what direction the Coyotes want to go in. I mean, I think Jakob Chychrun's one of the better younger defensemen in the league. A contending team would love to have him. We know that. But if the Coyotes want to build from the back end out and keep him for the remainder of his contract, like personally, I think that wouldn't be a bad move because there are not many better young defensemen out there in the whole league than Jakob Chychrun, especially from a goal-scoring standpoint. And I think we saw last year with Gostisbehere's emergence, like he took on the offensive lifting, but the real heavy lifting was what Chychrun was doing, and it wasn't always pretty because he had workload. But I think that Chychrun, it says a lot about him, what he went through last year, finished the season, I think, a little stronger than he started it. For this year with a clean slate, maybe at these games at Arizona State, it's going to be, crazy atmosphere. It could be something where some of the younger players on the team really take that in stride, and it creates a better culture and atmosphere around the team in general. And I think that's something that could definitely benefit Jakob Chychrun. It's a storyline that no other team in the NHL is dealing with right now, but there could be some positivity coming from it. And if he stays with the Coyotes, I could see it benefiting Jakob Chychrun, that momentum.
So I want to look at the rest of the league now as a whole. Obviously, there's the people at the top of the draft every year: McDavid, Matthews, Draisaitl, etc. So besides those obvious top players, what are some of the best maybe early round value picks that people can get outside of those top names, and then some other sleeper picks in the NHL as well?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a really great rookie class. So if we start with the sleepers, I think you could get a Matty Beniers outside the top 100 from the Kraken. You could get a Mason McTavish from the Ducks outside the top 100 or maybe even top 150, depending on your league. And those guys have real potential to score 60-plus points this year. We have them both projected for 60-plus. So, and again, those are from teams that are not most likely going to be playoff teams either. So similar note about what we're talking about with the Coyotes, just because a team may not make the playoffs doesn't mean they can't be extremely valuable in fantasy. So another guy I really like, we always look at teammate beneficiaries, Jacob Vrana, outside the top 100. His average draft position is extremely low. He has a new coach. He has a lot more talent around him. If he plays more with Dylan Larkin or more on the first power play, I could see Jacob Vrana scoring like 40-plus goals this year. I think his ceiling is that high. And then to answer your first question, some of my favorite players in the early rounds with some value, I really like Evander Kane on the Edmonton Oilers. What he was doing last year, scoring at like a 40 or 50 goal pace during his time with the Oilers. They re-signed him. He's probably going to be playing with either McDavid or Draisaitl at even strength at all times. He's going to be covering shots on goal and hits at a very high level. So I like Evander Kane outside the top 50. I also like Alex DeBrincat. And really, I think another hidden team out there, maybe the most improved team out there, is the Ottawa Senators this offseason. We have them projected for double digits more wins than last season, which says a lot because they play in a really tough Atlantic division. But they have now Alex DeBrincat, Claude Giroux, Cam Talbot. They got a rookie hidden gem, Jake Sanderson, that could maybe contend for the Calder Trophy. So generally speaking, I feel like people are sleeping on the Ottawa Senators, and whether it's the guys in the earlier rounds like Brady Tkachuk or Alex DeBrincat, or some guys in the middle like a bounce-back guy, Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, Claude Giroux, Tim Stützle, Josh Norris, the list goes on. Almost all of my fantasy teams this year, I'm going to be getting multiple Senators because I think they're really about to make a big splash, offensively at least.
I looked at your list of breakout candidates, and one thing that caught my eye is the goaltender shuffle across the National Hockey League with goalies playing with different teams this year.
Yeah.
With guys getting, new goalies and new places with new faces, are there any goalies that we should be looking for that get a jump start in their career by playing for a different team?
I like the impact on Jack Campbell going from the Maple Leafs, where he was pretty good, I thought, regular season and postseason at large, but faced just a ton of pressure, couldn't get out of the first round. Now he's going to the Oilers, where they should be one of the best teams in the league. Really addresses their glaring weakness. They haven't had a good goaltender for the past 6 or 7 seasons, really. So I think Jack Campbell is a great in fantasy. He's actually going lower than where we have him ranked, so you could call him a bargain based on his average draft position. Alexander Georgiev could really get a big jump start because he was stuck behind Henrik Lundqvist. Now he was stuck behind the best goalie in the league, Igor Shesterkin. But now he's going to the defending champion Colorado Avalanche. So you could get 30-plus wins by accident on a team that's that good. So
seriously,
I really like Georgiev as an obvious bounce-back candidate. But, like Stützle, who I mentioned earlier, just because a guy's an obvious bounce-back candidate doesn't mean people are going to be taking him in the top 50 overall of their draft. So you could get Stützle outside the top 75 as a guy that could be a full-fledged breakout point producer and goal scorer. And then for Georgiev, too, whether you reach for him or not, Georgiev's probably going to be out there after changing teams 75 or later, maybe even outside the top 100 in some leagues.
Pete, you touched on a couple names earlier, but when you look at the rookie class, who are some of the players that might be worth taking a flyer on?
Right, so I think I mentioned 3 already. I like Sanderson based on where he's going. If Shabbat deals with another injury, he has missed a lot of time with injury. You could see Sanderson playing some first power play very early and often in his NHL career with players like Brady Tkachuk, Alex DeBrincat, who's a top 10 goal scorer in the league over the past couple of seasons combined. Very sneaky trade acquisition by them. I think DeBrincat should be viewed as an elite player, and he's not always in that conversation. And he could also be out there, with some great power play marksmen like Claude Giroux, Drake Batherson, and guys like that. So I'm big on Sanderson. I mentioned McTavish and Matty Beniers already. Owen Power is a big one, but he's a similar guy to Sanderson at the defenseman position, where maybe he's not going to be on the first power play immediately because he's playing behind Rasmus Dahlin, who's a really great young defenseman in his own right. We'll see how they work those guys into the offensive mix and power play as early as this season. There's also Logan Thompson, a rookie eligible guy. He's 25. He played a lot last year. He played, I think, 19, 20 games last year, and was really good for Vegas, even when they were kind of dealing with so many injuries around him and kind of crumbling as a team. Logan Thompson was a steady hand in the crease for them, and Robin Leonard's out for the whole season. So if you could look at a team that you expect to be at the very least a fringe playoff team if they're healthy in Vegas, Logan Thompson likely going to be either their 1A goalie or maybe even a full-time starter. He's a guy that could get 25 to 30 wins just because of the volume of games that he's going to be playing behind a very strong defense in Vegas. So, yeah, those are the guys I'm looking at. A couple of sleepers. William Eklund is a rookie for the Sharks if he plays, top 6 in first power play. Also, same deal with Cole Perfetti from the Winnipeg Jets. I think those guys could really pop off this season if they get the right usage for their new coaches, David Quinn for the Sharks and Rick Bowness for the veteran for the Winnipeg Jets after their coaching change.
All right, I want to ask you this because as someone who's been doing this for a long time, every year I go in thinking I know exactly how I should strategize drafting, but from you, an expert, and obviously it depends on which pick you end up getting in your draft, but what's a good draft strategy? Where do you want to take the top players? Where do you want to take your first goalie, your first defenseman, if you're maybe not in the outside of those top 3 where it's an obvious top 3 pick? What's a good fantasy hockey draft strategy?
Right, so it'll be easy for you if you get one of the first 5 picks because it's McDavid 1, it's Draisaitl 2. Then you could change the order, but it's either Matthews, McKinnon, or Makar at 3, 4, 5 in pretty much all the mock drafts I've done. Then it gets interesting where you start to consider, Kirill Kaprizov, Mikko Rantanen, some of the other great forwards like Nikita Kucherov, but he's missed a lot of time because of injury in recent years. So it's tough to get a pulse on what Kucherov is actually going to return for you, but he does have maybe the highest ceiling of any other player outside of Connor McDavid from a point standpoint. He had that one season where he had like 120-something points a few years ago, so the ceiling is super high for him. But once you get to the later part of the first round, you're really going to consider getting either Andrei Vasilevsky or Igor Shesterkin because they're both playing for great teams, relatively sure things, heavy workload, high save percentage, high floor, very safe. And after those 2 guys in the goalie pecking order, I think there's a significant drop-off from the number 1 and 2 guys, Vasilevsky and Shesterkin, to the number 3, 4, and 5, where you start to consider names like UC Saros, Freddie Anderson, who is coming off an injury last season, was really good, but Ilya Sorokin for the Islanders. You don't even know if the Islanders are going to make the playoffs. Same goes for the Predators. Same goes for a guy like Jake Ottinger. So long story short, I think you get Shesterkin or Vasilevsky in the first round and don't think twice about it. Okay. And then if you do that, really a cool thing you could do is, like, let's say you get Shesterkin in the first round, but you don't want to take 2 players from the same team in your next pick. You could get an elite defenseman like Victor Hedman very easily, or vice versa. If you take Vasilevsky in the first round, you could get Adam Fox as an elite defenseman in the second round. So you could be pretty creative. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about with some of the different positions with early round picks in my drafts this year.
Okay, that's very good to know for me because I get so stressed. And we don't, for my draft, we don't determine our draft order until like an hour before, so you can't really.
Gotcha.
You can't plan too much.
And the other hard part is because of what we do and how closely we follow the team, everybody expects us to do well. Like, oh, you've got to win the thing.
Yeah.
Right? You got to win your
host a Coyotes podcast. You know everything about
exactly.
hockey. So
now I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to NHL.com/fantasy, and I'm just.
I'm listening to the.
I'm letting
fantasy
Pete take care of it for me.
Too.
Let him do the work.
Exactly.
On that note, Pete, if you could just once again tell people where they can find your work in its various forms.
Well, yeah, definitely go to NHL.com/fantasy, NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast. You can see our work on NHL Network as well. We're going to be doing preseason draft special the week of the start of the season. Also, the week before that, the last week of September, we're going to be doing a YouTube mock draft show on the NHL's YouTube channel, which will be really cool. We've never done that before, so we're looking forward to that big time. And also follow the fantasy accounts on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can reach out directly to us. Like my handle's NHL Jensen, Jensen. And you can reach out any time of day if you have your draft coming up, if you're thinking about a pickup during the season, if you're clicking around our cheat sheet and you're wondering why, Matty Beniers is ranked ahead of Trevor Zegras, I can give you my explanation, hopefully make you more informed, not only as a hockey fan, but as a fantasy manager in your draft and make better decisions. So looking forward to draft season, looking forward to the start of the new season, looking forward to seeing the Coyotes playing in an awesome arena this year, and I think it's going to be really fun to watch. It's going to be a unique setting, but I'd love to get out to a game if I can out there sometime. So thanks for having me on, and good luck in your drafts this year.
All right,
Thank
and
you.
Fantasy lovers, you heard that. Pete says if you're stressing over your team at 3 a.m., go ahead and send him a direct message. Pete,
reach out.
Pete, thanks so much for
Thank
joining
you
us.
so
Really
much.
appreciate the insights.
Thanks, Pete.
Sure. Appreciate
Thank
having me.
you. Thanks again. Well, thank you again to Pete Jensen. NHL.com.
You guys are excited now.
I am want to go do my draft
It's
right
still
now.
stressful, though.
It's stressful, but
If you're not in the top 5, and you need the top 5 pick, but if you're not in the top 5, then where do you go? And if you are in the top 5, is it McDavid?
But I feel better now about if I'm outside of the top 5 where I would draft.
Yeah.
Like that's where I always get stressed. I always stress about when to take a goalie. Because you don't want to take a goalie and then miss on an elite player. But some of the things that he said that for me really stood out as things to think about when drafting is looking at how the teammates, like if you know that this player is on a line with this player, they're probably going to be, a high point producing line. So if you miss out on, the one guy, if you get the other guy on the
Kane
line.
DeBrincat.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So,
used to be anyway.
Yeah. But that's why thinking about, and for me, and I said this in the beginning, like I usually stay away from what I perceive as bad teams because team stat, especially goalies, I would not.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Mamelka, and I'm not.
You need the wins.
Yeah, you do need wins, but we saw, Keller and Schmaltz have huge point seasons last year, and that can happen even on a team that's going to finish in the bottom third of the league.
I'm intrigued by the Jacob Chychrun talk too, because I don't know. None of us know what's coming with him. Is he going to be here the whole season? Is he going to be traded at the deadline? Are they going to work it out and he's going to remain a Coyote? And if so, what is his role? Like when we talk about the power play in particular, Shane Gostisbehere was running the top power play. But part of the reason that Andre said he couldn't have Chychrun on that, because he also had Phil Kessel. Kessel's gone. Yeah. So does that mean you can move Chychrun into that slot? Yeah. I don't know. You might have some thoughts on that.
I would be surprised if he did.
Yeah.
Like I know you look at the top power plays in the league, and most of them are running with one defenseman.
Yeah.
And you put the forwards on the flanks. Now they tried Chychrun in the bumper or the flanks previously, and he's got that one-time shot from the top. So maybe.
Yeah.
I don't see it. And that's when we're talking about fantasy too. The other key to this in that early round picks, the other thing if you can find out, and that made a little bit of homework, who's on that top power play of all of these teams, there's a lot of extra points on that power play. And that's a big way to get into fantasy points. You got to get a guy that's on the number one power play. And that's the concern about Chychrun. So if it's Gostisbehere getting that PP1 time versus Chychrun, you got to look at where that fantasy value falls to if you're not on that first power play, because that's a lot of extra points, a lot of extra ice time. Yeah. So that'll be a big key for Jacob. Can he find his way back to the number one power play? And again, just like we said on the last show, going to be up to him. Like if he's been working on his mobility off the blue line and his shot, and force the coaches to take you off the power play. Make it difficult to be. You're the guy. You're the guy. So it's kind of the ball's in Jacob's court, and wait and see how training camp goes and see where he's going to be in these preseason games on power play time to see where he's going to fall during the regular season. Yeah.
And one last note too that he said that resonated with me was Lawson Krause. Mm-hmm. Not only did he get all the goals that he got, but he's also getting hits. And when you're people are waving at us through the window, that's why we got distracted for a second. Craig didn't notice anyone.
Yeah. Craig's dialed in. He's focused.
But you also get points in fantasy for hits. Yep. And that's an underrated thing. Sometimes people just think of points and goals and assists and saves and all of that stuff, but hits are value too. So Lawson is a really, really great sleeper pick, and that I am keeping to myself, and I am not sending this episode to anyone in my fantasy league. If you're watching, please turn this off. I don't want you to know what I'm thinking about. But Pete mentioned being really excited to see the Coyotes play in Mullet Arena. I know a lot of people are. I know a lot of people have been trying to buy tickets. Single game tickets are on sale officially. And I was perusing the Game Time app, and I found tickets in the 80s, which is something that I hadn't heard from people's correspondence on Twitter. People were seeing tickets in the 200s. I literally saw tickets in the 80s on the Game Time app. It's seriously the best place to buy tickets, not just for sporting events, but for concerts and shows as well. It's the hottest new ticketing site, and it's so easy to use. Like, it's just clean and easy and user-friendly. So you can save up to 60% on tickets, especially when you buy them last minute. It's great for the procrastinators out there like myself. And if you love PHNX, then you'll love Game Time. And the best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description. So please, if you're going to buy tickets, click on that link in either this YouTube description if you're watching or the audio description if you're listening. It helps us out immensely. And as it's Friday, I hope he's prepared. It's time for the DraftKings pick of the week. Sean, what do you got?
I haven't looked at the line recently, but I'm gonna keep doing it until they prove me wrong. Buffalo Bills spread against the Tennessee Titans. 2 straight primetime games to start the season. First time that's ever happened in my life. But the Bills are just a wagon. I don't think the Titans are as good as they've been in years past, so I think the Bills are going to blow them out like they blew out defending world champion Los Angeles Rams. Titans are just worse. Hopefully, King Henry doesn't stiff arm anybody into oblivion. But otherwise, Bills are going to keep rolling. No one circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills.
All right.
Wow.
There you have it.
Yes, that's easy.
Sean's DraftKings pick of the week. I actually won money on DraftKings last night with the early win promotion, which was if either team goes up by 7 points, you win your money line bet no matter what. And guess what? Every single person won last night because both teams were up by 7 at some point.
Took the Chiefs till the fourth quarter to do it.
Yeah, I know. I was
waiting
for
the extra point because that's the way my DraftKings luck has been going. So the Chiefs get the touchdown to go up by 6, and I go, okay, if this guy gets the extra point, I win. So the way I've not been on a heater, the opposite. So I thought for sure they were going to miss the extra point, and I thought for sure it's going to be 6, and I'm not going to hit. But he hit it, and I got 7, and I won.
Yep, I won as well. So with my $5 weenie bet, but
there it is again.
Weenie bet.
The weenie bet.
That's my brand. And you can win money on DraftKings too. If you bet just $5, you can get $200 in free bets instantly on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Plus, everyone can experience the thrill of DraftKings early win promotion that we just talked about. Bet on any NFL team to win. And if your team leads by 10 at any point during the game, you get paid instantly, even if your team loses. So it's simple. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook. Use promo code PHNX when you sign up. That's promo code PHNX on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
You know what I think about when DP gets on one of his Bills runs over there? I think about how miserable this show could be if the Sabres actually break through and start to be a good team.
Oh, no.
And we didn't get to talk about Peyton Krebs, who was another guy that I noticed was one of his breakout guys this year with Peyton Krebs that got from Vegas in the Eichel trade. He's another guy that was on the sleeper list. This Buffalo Sabre team, they're pretty good.
I think so too.
Listen,
they're going to be better.
I obviously love the Sabres. I'm always going to root for my hometown team. But at this point, I'm more invested in the Coyotes than I am the Sabres. Like, I know more about the Coyotes. It would be cheaper for me. I wouldn't have to fly home for a parade if the Coyotes win.
There we go again.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately, the playoffs is probably a little closer to the Buffalo Sabres than it is the Arizona Coyotes. Right now, they're just a couple of years behind Buffalo in the rebuild. That's all.
I mean, honestly, that could work perfect. If the Bills' window is slightly before the Coyotes, or the Sabres' window is slightly before the Coyotes, I can root for the Sabres, and then the Sabres can get their Stanley Cup, blow it all up, and then the Coyotes can have their time in the sun.
100%.
And it's fine to have an East Coast team and a West Coast team, in my opinion. So
Fine with me.
if you were on gophnx.com this morning, you would have seen Craig's hefty neutral zone.
Pack a lunch.
Yeah.
3,000 words.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize because there was a ton of great stuff in there. We won't give it all away. You'll check out gophnx.com to read the full story. But a couple of notes we want to touch on. The first one, we've kind of been talking about every show all week long because it's still something that we need to know. It's that Barrett Hayton still does not have a contract and training camp is in under a week.
Yeah, and Bill Armstrong said the other day they're basically in a staring contest at this point. So it's obvious that it's about money. It usually is about money. But as we've seen so many times in the past, and even with the Lawson Krause situation where they were literally in the room about to start the arbitration hearing when they reached a deal, nothing spurs action quite like a deadline. Training camp opens next week. They report on Wednesday, get on the ice on Thursday. Do I have that right? Yeah. So if something doesn't happen by then we're talking about an entirely different angle. And Pete, you've said this before. It's really important for Barrett Hayton to be in camp. He needs to be on the ice.
Yeah, this is hard for me because I like Barrett Hayton as the kid. A great kid, works hard, does everything right. Career high is 10 goals, right? Like, I'm still, if he scores 20 last year and he's playing top 6 minutes and he's power play and you're going, okay, yeah, but pay him. I'm concerned. I mean, he had an injury in training camp. Then he gets injured during the year. The year before, he was hurt. He hasn't been able to put together that string of games to show his consistency and the ability to put points up offensively day after day after day. Can he get people the puck? Absolutely. Is he a smart 200-foot player that can play in the defensive zone, kill penalties? Absolutely, he can do all of those things. But until he can stay on the ice for 82 games or play most nights, stay healthy, and put up the numbers he's expected to put up, it's hard. It's hard. Like he has to be there on Thursday because there are too many other players on this roster that are looking for a chance to play.
Yeah.
There's new players coming in. There's old veteran players. We talked about Chiasson coming in on a PTO. People want ice time. McBain, Nathan Smith, guys want to play. And if they're there Thursday and Barrett Hayton isn't, every day he's not there is another day he's going to get behind. I hope they get this solved. I think this is a huge year for Barrett Hayton. And when this rebuild is done and they're out through the other end of the tunnel, you want Barrett Hayton to be a big part of what they're trying to build here. To do that, he needs to play. He needs to show that consistency. I don't know if it's a bridge deal at a smaller number. I don't know if it's a long-term number that they can both deal with. I hope they get it done, but it's Friday. Yeah. So there's not a lot of time for this to get done. I know he's training, he's in shape, he's ready to go. Let's hope they can get a deal done. And by next week, this is a distant memory, and we're just talking about Barrett Hayton, what a great day he had at practice. So let's hope this gets resolved in the next week. I get concerned when it's getting this close. This isn't Keith Tkachuk. This isn't Keith Tkachuk that was putting up 50 goals a year and looking for more money in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's not what this is. He's got 10 is his career high in goals. That's not what we're talking about. So there is a concern level here. I hope they get it done.
Well, hopefully they get it done, and then you can draft him in your fantasy league as a sleeper, and he has a breakout season.
There you go.
Who knows? Maybe it'll be one of those. You mentioned him, Petey, but you guys talked about it yesterday, the signing of Chiasson.
Alex Chiasson, yeah.
There we go. But Craig actually got to know a little bit more about him, talk to some of his former...
Yeah, I was curious. Just you always like to get sort of character references on guys just to see, because you look at Chiasson and you think, okay, they're trying to replace some of the veteran leadership that they lost because all those guys are gone. So I reached out to two guys who used to be Coyotes, Alex Goligoski and Connor Garland, and they both had glowing things. Just like Connor Garland said, he's going to be one of my all-time favorite teammates. Love the guy. He's a lot of fun. They both definitely think he can walk into this locker room and lead. So there's no guarantee he makes the roster, right? He's on a PTO. He's got to earn it. But when you look at what he brings to the table, I guess when I think about PTOs, normally I think, we'll see. But with a guy like Chiasson and this team, I think he's maybe got a little better shot of making this roster.
Yeah, but he fits for all the reasons you just mentioned. I mean, the leadership is a big deal here. That gap and that void from guys like Stralman and Beagle, potentially Ladd, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But he's going to fill that gap, and he's a guy that's put up points and played with the best player in the world. He played with McDavid in Edmonton, where he was able to put up some points. I think he fits in, and I think he's a guy that can make this roster, and not just his offensive upside. He's 6'4", over 200 pounds, and that's, again, kind of falls into what Bill Armstrong wants to do.
Big team.
Checks a lot of boxes. And I keep talking about Chiasson, Bugstead, Cassian, and Richie. Oh, boy. Yeah, let's throw these guys over the board.
We're not expecting the team to win a ton, but they're not going to make it easy for
They're a big
be a hard team to play against.
And that's what Bill Armstrong has been saying this whole time. Even though this is rebuild mode, they don't want to make it easy, and they want to have that compete, and that's what a lot of these players have. Last note that we'll talk about from the neutral zone, which, by the way, there's so much more in there, so please do check it out. But Jason Demers,
speaking of PTOs,
speaking of PTOs, has signed one with the Edmonton Oilers. And Craig had the opportunity to catch up with JD and hear not just about this opportunity and what he's done to get to this point where he has an opportunity to play another NHL game, but his crazy journey last season, being in Russia, the start of the war. So definitely read that whole thing. But Craig, what are some notes from your conversation?
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, you touched on the key points there. It was interesting to hear Jason Demers talk about his final season here in Arizona and how difficult it was for him with the coaching staff and wanting to reach a game milestone of 700. He clearly didn't get there. He's one game shy, so maybe he gets that opportunity in Edmonton, and it's a pretty good place to play if you're just trying to get pucks up to certain forwards, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in particular. But his story was just insane. He didn't get any offers in the league. He had to get some work done on his body too. He had back issues. He also talked about having some mental issues that he had to work through. So he goes and plays in the Channel One Cup in Russia. While they're there, he's getting offers to play in the KHL. So he accepts the offer to play in the KHL. He plays in the Olympics. The season gets stalled in the KHL after 5 games. He goes back to Switzerland, is doing nothing for a month, waiting for the Olympic team to come. And then he finally goes back for the playoffs for the KHL, and the war breaks out. So wild year for Jason Demers. But he's back in North America. He was skating up in Scottsdale. We saw him up there. But his goal all along. He's wanted to get back to the NHL. He still thinks he has something in the tank. We'll see. He knows Jay Woodcroft. He was one of his coaches for 6 years in San Jose. He's going to get that opportunity, and that's really all that he wanted.
Yeah, he's sitting at 699 in total games played. He wants to get that 700.
Does.
So let's hope he has a good camp and he comes in shape, ready to play. Experienced veteran right-handed defensemen are hard to come by, so let's hope he can find a home up in Edmonton.
Yep, absolutely. Best of luck to JD, friend of the program.
Friend of the program.
It feels like a lot of people are these days. PD, what are you drinking right now?
You know what? And I remiss because yesterday I wanted to get a beer before the show started, and I didn't. Today I said absolutely going to get a beer before the show started.
And I even said it 10 minutes before.
I know. Sometimes I just don't think in a straight line. So I didn't get that done either. And as soon as the show started, I forgot my beer. And luckily, Jacob, our head producer, production, I don't know, is he a VP or whatever? He's the big wheel here at PHNX, brought me a beer. And so now I am drinking my Four Peaks. Wow. The little bit of citrus, perfect. For 11 a.m.
Craig is drinking water, but out of his Four Peaks glass.
I am, yeah. I thought a beer would have put me under today, and I don't want to go off on an airline rant, but maybe that's for another day. But
it involves flying to Montreal and how that is cursed, but like we said, we'll save that for another day. Yeah. But we'll actually be out at Four Peaks this Sunday, the 18th, for the Arizona Cardinals watch party at Four Peaks at 12:30. Enjoy drink specials, Cardinals ticket giveaways. Literally, you show up, you get a raffle ticket. So your odds of winning are pretty good. And you can watch the game on a 220-inch screen experience. Check out the link in the descriptions. It's just $5 a ticket, and that gets you a beer as well. You must be 21 or older and enjoy Four Peaks responsibly. I'm going to pick up some Four Peaks on my way home for the weekend ahead. And we talk about our new studio all the time and how amazing it is. Was it you or Craig? Oh, PD was hyping up the office chairs in here because they're super comfortable. And that's courtesy of More. More Furniture outfitted our entire new studio. It's super nice. If you watched the show yesterday with Javier Gutierrez, which I hope you did, it was a phenomenal interview. The chairs that PD and Craig were sitting in.
PD has feet up, I think, part of it.
Yeah, it was good.
Courtesy of More.
Can't wait for the first post-game show. I'll put my feet up and have a beer.
I had my pillow on Southwest Bias.
I did see Craig defeated Derek on Southwest Bias, if you missed that.
Did you miss that when I defeated Derek Montilla on Southwest Bias? Maybe you want to go back and watch that. Definitely
Go back and watch. And if you need some new furniture for your home or your office, check out More Furniture's fall sale at morefurniture.com. All right, it's our final Friday segment, and we're only going to do it for a couple more weeks because once the season starts, we're going to retire some of our summer segments, but it's Weekend Binge. Yeah. And I know PD's really...
I'll go first because mine's short.
Okay, why don't you go first,
No,
PD?
I'll go first because mine will be short.
Unprepared.
No, I'm not prepared. It's just short. I like to have that list. I like to have a graphic. I like to have a movie. And I got nothing. It's Craig's fault. Because I swear to God, we talked about the bear for 3 weeks straight. And I sincerely thought, remember the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and the bear chased him, The Revenant or whatever that was? So in my head, every time he talked, I just shut off. And I was running that movie in my head. No offense, Craig, but I did. So in my head, I'm watching a guy in the woods running from a bear. That's what I had.
Oh my
Literally
God.
for weeks. Then I see the trailer. Turns out that's not what it's about.
No, not even close.
Not what the bear's about. The bear is about a restaurant in Chicago. I didn't know because I didn't pay attention. Money. Absolutely money. And if anybody's ever worked in a service industry, specifically in a restaurant, this is the vibe. That is work every day in a kitchen. I don't care if you're at a high-end restaurant or if you're working at a fast food joint. That's the vibe. It is buzzing. And that show captures it perfectly. And the writing is unbelievable. Acting's phenomenal. If you haven't seen The Bear because you thought it was about an animal in the woods, it is not.
PD, I promise you, not a single person thought it was about a bear.
Seriously?
The funniest part about you saying it takes place in Chicago is that's been like the bulk of Craig's bringing up the bear every time. It's like, it's in Chicago. I know some of the spaces. Like every single time it's come up.
And they capture that Chicago essence. It's money.
And Shawnee didn't hear a word you said.
And I'm watching the season finale tonight.
I swear to God, we've talked about the bear on this show more than any other thing.
But you guys, and I don't want to get off the Weekend Binge, but you guys don't understand how my brain works. It doesn't go like from here to there. It's like this. It's buzzing. Like I got 5 things I'm thinking about right now. And sometimes it's not what Craig's talking about. That's all.
So basically you're admitting to ignoring Craig.
Yes.
All right. That tracks to the fact
Bear,
that you don't read our group
season
chat.
finale.
That's good stuff.
Tonight.
All right. I'll go next. It's not Love Island UK for once.
Where's the applause button?
Yeah, seriously. Not Love Island UK. Yay! All right. I have two. One I'm really behind on, so I'm sorry if everyone's already watched this, but on Hulu, Under the Banner of Heaven, it's about the murder of a woman and her child in the 80s. It's the Mormon community in Salt Lake City, and it's based on a true story, the investigation of this crime, and one of the detectives is Mormon, and he kind of
Andrew Garfield?
Andrew Garfield.
I've been eyeballing that actually.
It's phenomenal, and he's Mormon himself, so now he's kind of at odds with his own religion. It's very fascinating. So if you like true crime, true stories, but also some more, depthful things about those religious influences, is a really good show, phenomenal acting. I've been watching that. I have one episode left, so I'm going to finish that hopefully tonight. And my other one, also on Hulu, and this might also be Craig, so sorry if I'm stealing yours, but The Handmaid's Tale is back.
Yes, it's back.
And that's a phenomenal show. I need to go watch a recap, though, because it feels like it's been forever. But there's already 2 episodes out on Hulu. The first 2 I haven't watched them yet. So Under the Banner of Heaven and Handmaid's Tale, which are both very dark and very,
that's an uplifting
bigger
weekend
picture,
right
the United States and religion shows. So.
Yeah, not at all timely. Moving on, yes, I'm also watching The Handmaid's Tale. A couple more, and this isn't really the weekend because it comes out next week, but Star Wars Andor.
Yeah.
That's coming out next week, and Pete is rolling his eyes here, asking if
I'm so excited.
I asked for his action figure.
Yeah.
Did he have the lunchbox in today?
So here's the thing about Star Wars. I obviously watched it a long time ago and became a fan
when I was
then.
10.
Here's a truth about Star Wars that's hard to admit, but it is true. The acting in Star Wars has never been very good in any of the spin-offs. Like even in The Mandalorian, if you look at it, Pedro Pascal, who was unbelievable in Game of Thrones as the Prince of Dorne,
you don't think he's good
they somehow muted him, so he's just
Are
like
you speaking English right now?
just kind of dull.
I think that the fact that he conveys emotion when you can't see his face is phenomenal.
I've always felt like the acting in the Star Wars movies was not that great, but I didn't care. I'm still going to watch it. I still like them, and I'm still going to watch this. The other thing that I'm watching with my kids is Solar Opposites, is the guys that were behind Rick and Morty. They have another, and it's about aliens that come to Earth. Are you watching this?
I have not yet, but I do want to because I do love Rick and Morty. I just have to say, Petey is giving it's like he's like a jock at Comic-Con. Like he's like all these people are nerds, but he's also outnumbered, so there's nothing he can really do about it.
Just your dragons and stuff. Yeah, cool.
Wow, hating on the thing that millions of people around the world
I sat in the front row in
You're
1977 a dozen times to watch that movie like this. I'm 54. Like at some point, I cut the cord and I threw out the figures.
Says who?
Like, buddy, and we're and beyond that, we're talking about the acting. It's Darth Vader. It's acting. It's the action.
And that's my point, too. It's action. Exactly. That's it. It's action, and that's
on the acting.
But there, you got Harrison
and the
Ford,
Academy
so
Award
you got
goes
occasional people who can act, but then you have Mark Hamill was terrible. He couldn't act at all as Luke Skywalker.
And the top
but we all love
of all time, like HK. Like the Academy Award goes to Princess Leia. No,
yeah,
HK.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ, it's for fun.
Still got to believe the characters, Petey. Come on. Acting is a critical part of a movie. Maybe not for you. Maybe you just like explosions.
Jar Jar Binks
maybe you just like maybe you're into the Fast and Furious chain. I don't know.
I didn't tune in for the incredible acting performance and depth of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I didn't.
Now, Sir Alec Guinness, there's a guy who can act.
Who didn't want to do the role, by the way.
My weekend binge is Welcome to Wrexham.
Oh yeah, I want to watch that.
It's actually very good. I'm
on the list.
Like an episode or 2 behind, I think. It's very fascinating.
Money?
Yeah, I was just trying to get Leah.
I'm on the list.
Hand the reins back to
Thank
Leah.
you. I do want to watch that.
The quiet things.
But it is very good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Unless Petey's going to rant further.
No, I'm good.
We're done.
Do you have any strong held beliefs about Americans owning British soccer teams?
No, I want to see it. It's on the list. Ted Lasso. Got it. I'm in.
Yeah, just won a ton of Emmys too.
Saw it.
So
watch the Emmys.
Well, that's our weekend binge segment. That one got a little bit out of hand. This has been a fun show today. Fantasy Friday here on the PHNX Coyotes podcast, not the PHNX Sports podcast. You can watch the Phoenix Sports podcast, though, at 12:30 if you stay tuned on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss a show.
I do have one more thing.
Oh, God.
No, because the Coyotes PR just reached out to me, too, and we've talked about it over the last 2 days.
Some streaming info?
So we've been waiting for the final streaming info for the Rookie Faceoff in San Jose. games will be streamed. They will be streamed. Just got the confirmation. You can go to ArizonaCoyotes.com. You can look at anything. Patrick Brown is doing a game preview. There'll be a link in Patrick Brown's game preview, and also on the ArizonaCoyotes.com. We will get the link and tweet it out from our Twitter account before the game starts today.
And who's going to be calling those games, Petey?
Bob Heathouse.
Legendary Bob Heathouse.
Yeah. So I know he's excited to get on.
Not a friend of the show, by the way.
Oh, he tried. He went good.
Just keeps
He
stiffing
said
us.
he said, why him?
We're just going to put it in the universe out there. Bob Heathouse is stiffing us. He's stiffing
So we'll
us.
get that link to you, and if you can't find it, to ArizonaCoyotes.com, or Patrick Brown will have it in his story. But the games start today at 4:30 against the Vegas Golden Knights. So keep an eye on the rookies all weekend long.
Absolutely. And like we said, check out Craig's Neutral Zone at gophnx.com. Become a member. There's been some really great stories on the website this week. Gerald's done and Espo have done an amazing job covering the whole situation with Robert Sarver and the Phoenix Suns. So please become a member. Join our family. You get a shirt from Locker when you sign up, like these ones. You can join our members only Discord, and not just the Coyotes Discord. It gets you access to all the Discords for all the teams. It's a really fun place to be. So please become a member. Join our family. We appreciate having everybody. I think that's it for us. We're going to head out. But if you stay tuned on the YouTube, stay tuned for bets starting in a couple minutes here at noon. Anything else before we go?
That's it. I'm good.
I'm out.
All right. We'll be back.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah, have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel at 11 a.m., our usual time. Until then, please like and subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at PHNX_Coyotes. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.